Andrea today. So we're really excited to, highlight and show you maybe how to, work in your communication strategy and hopefully take some things away that you can, use for your future projects. So I'm going to share my screen here, and then we'll start off with a little bit of a slide deck as kind of encompassing, and then we'll get to some live kind of examples too. So I'll show you a little bit, on the slides, but also a little bit more too on the some real life examples here. So let me just clear some things out and share my screen, and here we go. Awesome. So for the next 30 minutes or so, 25 minutes or so, we'll go through some of the line items here, right? So go through just a quick little introduction, but then also within these quick bullet points of the importance of defining your target audience, leveraging some common broadcasting tools, from like social media, and in-person communication methods. Also, as well, with some partnering with relevant organizations, utilizing some email marketing, and then host events. And we'll end the session by a little quick Q&A, and we'll kind of get started. So before we get started here, I want to do a quick little poll as far as within an introduction, just get a feel for the room here. So what have you done with online community engagement before? And what engagement tools maybe have you used in the past?
Seeing a lot of yeses. That's good. Surveys is winning right now. Interesting. A lot of online events. Not so much PB. Interesting.
All right, so we'll end the poll here. 3, 2, 1. Oh, and then we'll share the results here. So yeah, like Andrea was saying, a lot of people here very familiar with online engagement, right? And has done whether it's some surveys, online events, a lot of in-person events, right? Some mapping tools, some PB just for budgeting. So glad that we have an all-encompassing and well-diverse group here. And so as we go along, please feel free to ask some questions within the back end or within the chat function, or directly with us with the Q&A, and we'll be sure to to answer those at the end there. And so for just a quick little introduction about for us today, so I'll introduce myself, and Andrea can for her. My name is Billy Tragus. I've been in the online community engagement space for the better part of 6 years. So usually my like mission is to introduce a platform approach to government. So I really started really the infancy phase of online community engagement here in North America. So great to see how it's been and seen a very big transition from the beginnings of community engagement, especially in the digital space, to where it is now. And yeah, fun fact, was a previous chef in my former life. So used to cook a lot, and that was more of my kind of, I guess, way of getting into a community sense, right, of building. So that's the way within just how I was raised, and family, always cooking and always settled around events with food. And I'll let Andrea take over from here.
Thank you, Billy. That was awesome. I'd like to know what Billy's favorite food is to cook, actually. I've actually never asked him that question before. But hey, guys. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Andrea Conway. I'm the Online Community Engagement Manager here for North America at Citizen Lab. I actually started my career in sports and fan engagement. I'm a Canadian, so I worked for the Toronto Blue Jays previously. And actually the past 6 years I was in consulting. My biggest mission here at Citizen Lab is amplifying all underrepresented voices. And cool fun fact about me was I was actually named Yahoo Finance Top 10 Business Consultants in 2021.
Wonderful. Well, Andrea, my I guess to answer your question would be lamb chops for my favorite thing to cook. Right? So typical, being raised as a Greek in the Greek. So
You're gonna have to
um,
prove that to me next time.
So for our first step here, I think very first and very importantly, right, when you're defining and creating a communication strategy for whether it's, for your digital engagement space or even in live events is really to hone in and define your target audience. So I've seen that before, whether that's, creating a stakeholder mapping exercise, right? Finding out where the people who would be directly impacted from certain projects, and really getting their input in and targeting and changing your communication and messaging to really fit that audience. And so when it comes to promoting and marketing your online community engagement projects, the important step is really honing in and defining your target audience. And so then you can find out what are the most effective ways that you can, engage and tailor your messaging and communication strategies for them. So whether, conducting research, where your audience really hangs out, and especially too, if we're talking within the online space, so take a look at where are mostly people congregating in the online space. That would be like the social media platforms of the world, the wild Facebooks of the world, right? Where, it can be sometimes messy, but it's a great way to broadcast, especially if you have a dedicated online community engagement space that, hey, we're here, this is where you can come in and engage, and your voices will actually be heard. So whether that's, using your organization, like Facebook platforms, right? Or Instagrams of the world, or I've seen too, using like influencers as well, for just communicating, for one instance, like a dog park project, right? If you have a dog park project, maybe you look at the latest Instagram or dog park community person that's in your neighborhood, right? On other online forums, but then also taking a look at just online communities. So just identifying where your audience likes to spend their time, and then determining the best channels to engage and reach them. But also too, it's one thing to know them but it's another thing to really understand your target audience here. So so once you have a clear understanding of your target audience, it's important to consider the level of impact of each stakeholder and group that will have within your project. So this information can help prioritize your efforts, to focus on your resources and engage with, your most influential stakeholders first, or some of those stakeholders that will be immediately impacted, from your project, right? And so by prioritizing your efforts and focusing on engaging with the most influential stakeholders, you can maximize your impact and create, more effective marketing and promotional strategy. So how do you promote and use your the most effective strategy, right? So I would say leverage your common broadcasting tools. And so we already kind of went into the social media, right? So that's where you're going to find a lot of the big groups and communicate out, right? Also, bringing people into your own website. So having a clear, distinct way, especially too, I know we have a lot of folks here that work within local government. So one of the benefits, if you have a centralized place for engagement, whether you're using a Citizen Lab platform or any other the ones that are out there, having a clear, distinct way right on your homepage of distincting, hey, come connect with us. This is our engagement spot where you can leverage your voice and be able to be heard and used in the conversation. So, because if, prior to maybe having a platform, or if you don't have one, maybe it might be a little decentralized. So you might have projects in different areas. So having one concrete place where your residents or your people in your community can go and see. And then 3, having a communications toolkit. So I think really building a brand around community engagement, around your engagement efforts, and promoting it in a more synchronized way. So one of the things too is, simplifying your life with templates and a checklist. So create templates for regular communication. So whether that's having some posts here, And at the end too, I'll ask, whether you want our communications toolkit, which will come with some, some of these base templates right here that you can help, use for your marketing research or marketing broadcasting. But make sure you have a clear, concrete plan and some templates that you can use, right? So you don't want to spend all day every time you send a notification out in recreating the wheel. If you have some templates, throw a couple of different emojis on there and then send it, and you're done, you're on your way. But then also to make sure you can also to develop a checklist for communications for each different stage of your project. So depending on whether you're, just doing an introduction to your project, whether that's initial survey, right, or you're moving into the next phase of your project, you're going to have different communications between each stage. So very important to know when that comes, what is the next step, and what are some of the different checklists that you can have, so you can make sure that it's encompassing your overall communication and engagement strategy. Another one too is in flyers and like in-person events. So, I really feel that in order to have a good online strategy, you need to have a good in-person strategy. Community engagement, it's by no means easy work, so having, especially when you're working within a city, having flyers with QR codes, making it very easy for people. Everyone's walking around nowadays with the cell phone that can, take a picture and find out more information. But then also too at in-person events. At in-person events, you already have people that are interested in engaging on a project. So those are the people that you're most apt to, to get their feedback automatically. But then also as well, once you have that establishment and they sign up for into your platform, you can regularly communicate between all the different phases of your project. Another one too is, using the news, right? Using your latest, like your news outlet. So this is an example of the city of Norwich in Connecticut, making sure that within the local news, letting people know about it, whether they're reading about it in their news, you have the bulletins, whether that's in your public libraries, but also too, just very important with the press media, creating a buzz, right, around your communications and engagement platform to, hopefully then as well, you're creating that snowball effect of excitement to wanting people to come into the platform, sign up, so then you can regularly check in with them and update them, and then also to engage on new and future projects. But then also too, very important of just having that landing page, right? So whenever you're communicating about a certain project and a certain initiative, just making sure you have a landing page that is kept up to date. It's mobile friendly. Majority of website traffic nowadays are on mobile. So making sure that it's clearly accessible to mobile devices, but then also as well that it's kept up to date. Whether you have certain web pages, like whenever you go to a certain web page and it's not kept up to date or it's lagging, automatically you're going to lose credibility into what you're trying to achieve. So very important as far as within every project, making sure that you have a nice landing page for your audience, that way they can engage on your content. And so I'll pass it along to Andrea.
Perfect. Thank you, Billy. That was awesome. So now we're going to talk about partnering with relevant organizations and kind of what that looks like. So first, before we start, we have to understand that it's so valuable to be partnering with these organizations, but we also want to choose which one. So is it, community centers, CBOs, libraries, homeowners associations, even schools? And once the potential partners are identified, now it's time to kind of reach out and explore which ways you want to collaborate. So does that look at, co-hosting events? Is that online, offline? Is it maybe even both, a hybrid of them? Is it maybe even sharing resources together and putting them together and also doing a little bit of cross promotion initiatives on social media? Sometimes is it all three of these, or is it just one of them? Whichever one really works for the organization and for the team. You can change the slide. So obviously, by partnering with these local organizations, you can actually leverage the existing networks and the resources that you already have, and then obviously building a stronger community network and amplifying that message to a wider audience. So kind of leveraging those connections and that those networks you have as well. Go ahead. So this is actually one of my favorite examples of one of the clients we have here. So this is actually the City of Seattle Office of Planning and Community Development. So this is a huge, quick snapshot of kind of some of the partners they've partnered with. So you can kind of see down here, it's like the Asian Pacific American Labor Alliance, and they kind of go over which ones they partner with. They promote this continuously, and it's really great. So there you go. That's one example. And Billy will actually show after we go through these slides, Billy will actually go through the live site example of that as well. So what I wanted to do as well is also give some examples. So if your project, for example, is more for like local business, small business development, maybe consider partnering with like Chamber of Commerce or the Business Improvement District. If it's about environment sustainability, maybe local parks, rec departments, local environment departments. And then obviously if it's public health, consider maybe partnering with local healthcare departments, community health centers, and fitness organizations. So you kind of have like a plethora of ideas here, and start there, and then you can build those partnerships to a wider audience as well. Perfect. So now let's talk about email marketing. So this is kind of like, it's either dreaded for people or really exciting for email marketing. And the reason why I love email marketing is we can't always expect, the community members to come to us. So this is where email marketing comes in. This is where we will come to them, and then we'll establish that relationship with them. So something that you have to consider is always sending regular updates about the community engagement platform and projects, because that's really crucial. You can't expect them to know everything that's happening without first announcing it, right? So maybe some things to keep them informed about are, any latest developments, any opportunities for engagement, and any upcoming events as well. So this can really like build trust with any residents and community members as well. But also by tailoring this message specific to them, it also can determine the frequency and the timing of what those email updates look like. So this is like a small snapshot of kind of what our email platform looks like on Citizen Lab. Like I said, Billy's going to go a little concisely over it after, just because guys, I'm not so great at slides, so I didn't really know how to make it any bigger than that. So there you go. Next slide.
You didn't want to give too much away, Andrea.
Yeah, right. Just make it really tiny so no one can see. Okay, so for email marketing, we want to be really strategic with this approach. So having a clear understanding of what the community members' interests are, right? So tailoring the message so that you're speaking exactly to them. Now, we also want to determine the frequency and the timing of these email updates. So too many, it can cause email fatigue. I'm sure we've all been accustomed to being spammed, and no one really likes that, right? Too few, also, you can feel really disconnected, right? So the community members might not even remember if you're still there or what's going on, right? So having a really great balance. So maybe setting up kind of like a weekly or monthly update. So one example I always say is like, I really love watching like a certain show. So for example, like Grey's Anatomy. I know here in Toronto, it's, Channel 7 every day at 8, every week at 8 p.m. So you're going to try to do that with your community members as well, so that they can expect that they're going to get, a message from you, an email marketing message from you, so that they understand and they're really getting prone to accustomed to that. Obviously, make sure it's clear, concise language, not too wordy. So try not to make it look like the slide again. Make sure you're using a lot of relevant images and graphics that can pull people in. Sometimes people are more visual, so that will really help. And then, so just like a few examples. So if it involves local events, make sure to send emails to updating community members with information on that. If it's focusing on a specific cause, make sure it highlights the news, the developments, and the issues. And then obviously sending regular updates. So there's a bit of like that feedback loop. So not only are you informing, but you're making sure that anything that's gone to proposal, anything that's gone further, you're actually looping them back in. Next slide. So you've got hosting events, a little bit like this one that you're on right now. So this one's pretty understandable. So obviously hosting in person, but also online events is a valuable strategy. It gives you that opportunity to introduce your platform to the community members, get them really used to it. It's really personable for people. It also, you can also gather feedback, what did you like? What did you not like so much? Maybe there are things that we can tweak to improve. And then it also builds relationships, in a world with online, we're doing a lot of things on Zoom. Sometimes even having in-person events or online as well can really foster ongoing engagement and relationships. Next slide. Oh, go back, I think one. Yeah, perfect. So we want to be really strategic again with our approach to these events. So we want to choose the most relevant to the community members. So what type of events? Is it town hall meetings, community forums, workshops, training sessions, hybrid? Is it even like street teams? Are you even going up to them with iPads and engaging with them? What does that look like? And really be clear and detailed on that. Also, you want to have a clear agenda. No one likes to go to an event and there's no agenda. People like to know what's going to happen next. So have your discussion topics in hand, goals of the event, so they know what's going to happen at the end of it, so they can walk away knowing that they have takeaways and any specific actions or outcomes you hope to achieve as well. Now, obviously, Billy kind of touched upon this, but promoting the event to ensure maximum attendance, which is why I was so happy when I saw all of you guys flooding in into this Zoom. So obviously targeted social media ads, LinkedIn, what does that look like? Flyers, posters, QR codes, email invitations, and then obviously partnering with local organizations or influencers. And then obviously actively engage at the event. I think the worst thing that could happen is I attend an event and no one's like spoken to me that's on that committee or that board. So being able to kind of, be charismatic and speak to everyone and kind of hear how everyone is doing as well. Another one is conducting surveys or polls. So as you guys kind of saw earlier on this webinar, Billy kind of polled you, so that's really engaging. You don't see that often. So obviously we have a few examples of how to promote these events. So obviously town halls, local issues. And if your project involves promoting sustainable living, maybe you're going to do like a workshop on eco-friendly practices. Maybe if it's improving public health, maybe you're hosting training sessions. And of course, that's going to go along with the partnerships as well. So remember to always bring in those partnerships so they have a wider audience. Next slide. So another few of my favorite examples, which Billy will also show live side examples right after this. So, by choosing the right type of event and promoting it widely, so you can really see the efforts of what this looks like. So this is City of Seattle, again, their planning department, and you can see all their community meetings, all the participants, what that looks like. And then we have over here VRT, which is transportation, and they actually do a hybrid. So they do open houses, town halls, but included with that, they do even virtual town halls. So you can see what that looks like. Perfect. So Billy, did you want to start showing some examples of
Yeah. No, thank you, Andrea. And so I think we'll take a look at first, for instance, is the city of Lancaster. So when we were talking about one of the few ways, right, that you can broadcast your community engagement, site, your landing page, right? And is going to be, either those social media tools, but also directly on your corporate or government website. And so you can scroll down here. They used to have, they have some of their projects that, the ARPA funding right here that will link to their engagement site, but then also as well, when you scroll down to the bottom, they have the Engage Lancaster site here. So this would be what the platform, or the Citizen Lab platform, as far as, join the city's online participation platform, Engage Lancaster. So having the branding that's associated with this, and then letting the residents know that this tool is to lend to their voices and let their voices be heard. And so when the visitor and resident clicks into the website, they are brought to a separate landing page for the city of Lancaster, has the same branding guidelines, the same feel. So when the resident comes into the platform, they're asked to sign up. They can filter by different areas, maybe associate a different tag that maybe would be most important to them that they would want to engage on. But also very important too, and what Andrea was highlighting, creating that hybrid approach to engagement and having those in-person events as well. So not only, having this space to where they can proactively engage on and in the online space, but also knowing as well those in-person meetings to create that hybrid approach to engagement. And so these are all the different types of projects that they have here. They also have an historical reference as well as the archive project. So this is really a great way of showing all the great work that you're doing within your community. But I wanted to show, as far as just this quick little project here, the Artful Intersections page here. And so I really wanted to show what Andrea was saying as far as partnering with like different organizations, whether it be like CBOs, which the city of Seattle did, what I'll point out, but what the city of Lancaster did was partner with some corporate sponsors. So within the dynamic timeline, which shows what is happening right now, what has happened before, and what is going to be happening after within their project. Here, they have, there's some sponsors. So Bloomberg Philanthropies, also Sherman and Williams, QR codes. So these could be some street signs. So really, leveraging some of those posters, some of those, and closing some of that feedback loop, but also sponsoring with some of the other organizations to help either sponsor some of these kind of more expensive methods as far as, the printing and putting these out on the streets, but as well as, helping spread the word of what they're doing as well. We'll take a look then too. We'll jump to the city of Seattle. And so one of the great ways of what they did as well is, they partnered with those CBOs, but they also clearly outlined, which organizations and the reason why. So right here at the top, they have the home, they have to get involved with the different types of projects here, the events, again, listing those those in-person events, creating that hybrid approach, which is going to create that culture of engagement for your organization and lead to a better engagement process for future projects to come. They clearly outlined this engagement process, outlined the key audiences. So again, determining what the key target audience is, with the inclusive range of communities that they want to target, but then also too, as well as the community-based representation here. So what did the city of Seattle do in order to encompass, a centering and equity around this is for their comprehensive plan. So in order to be equity driven, what did they do? They created this one Seattle hub. So this site, so being accessible to the everyday resident that maybe can't make those in-person meetings, but also partnerships within the community-based organizations, and then the partnerships with those community liaison cohorts. So it's taking back from that snapshot that Andrea shared before, as far as those different organizations, and then quickly identifying and giving the reason why. So a lot of the times too, with communicating and engaging, especially within the online space, I think it's very important to deliver the why behind your doing certain things, right? So to the common communication expert and engagement expert, that might be lost within the process. So I like how they go into, the pandemic and how that's changed, and you need the virtual options within the in-person communication. So, just drawing back to how the digital engagement space has been and how it's changed rapidly from when I started 6 years ago. A lot of times, it provides a risk, before, when I first started 6 years ago within the online community engagement space, of why would I want to have an online space, right? Why do I need another place to get yelled at potentially? But, I think, as governments have and organizations have really adopted onto an online strategy. Not only does it make it easier to collect information, make just better decision making, but then also to just providing different opportunities for your residents to directly engage. And so, they found out 95% of Seattle households have access to internet. So having access to that information, and then as well as too, if you weren't looking to get, if you're looking to get equitable decision making and voices being heard, going to these direct CBO organizations to help implement those engagement strategies. So meeting the people where they are, whether that's in the online space or those organizations that already deal with those certain community members. And then as well as, the community liaison, cohort, as far as working department with neighborhoods, and then, the cohort of 10 community liaisons to really help, drive the engagement within, immigrant or refugee communities. And then as well as making sure that they have additional translation and interpretation to engage into the conversation. So if you take a look here on the right-hand side, you have English, and we use Weglot translation, which uses both algorithm translation. So think of like a Google Translate, but also too, as well as handwritten translation as well. So being very accessible into all the documents that they provide. And just to give you an idea of what that looks like, they have the joint Seattle community meetings. So again, building that hybrid approach to engagement as far as clearly listing, your community meetings here, community meetings report. So what Andrea was alluding to, as well as making sure you're reporting back out of what you're hearing. You don't have to wait all the way to the end of your consultation or in your engagement process to really, give out all the information that you're hearing. But then also too, as well as the meeting materials. So providing meeting materials in multiple different languages that, especially too, if you really want to have an equitable strategy, you need to have materials that support that. And then as well, within showing these community member meetings as well, being very clear about the plan. So whether that's a particular project, right? And this goes back to, explaining the why within your participation and engagement process. So clearly outlining the entire length of the project, whether that's a one singular project, or if you're using this for multiple different projects within your organization. So clearly identifying and having this all out there. All right. And so just in the essence of time, I will stop my share. So I know too, we wanted to, as well, we just want to make sure that we're answering some questions here. We have a few questions here in the chat. I know as well too, we're not able to get into the back end of the platform as far as how do we segment, use smart group functionality and email marketing component of it. So if you're interested in that, we can send some additional information with that. So let me just get a quick poll here to launch for some additional materials. Go ahead, Andrea.
Oh, no, go ahead. There's like some questions coming in, but you can do your
great.
Poll. We can engage them a little more.
Yeah, hey, I like my polls.
We gotta practice what we preach, right?
Exactly. So what we can do is we can send is those slides, right? And then we have a communications guide that we can send as well that can, that has some of those templates, those Facebook and social media templates, and some of the branding exercise and guidelines. And then two, in the chat, if you just put a 1 if you want additional information of just like some of the back end components. And then also too, I'll have my information shared there too. So you can feel free to reach out to either me or Andrea, there as well.
So let's get started on questions. So we've got Marianne here all the way from Paris, France. Guys, we are hitting global territory. How exciting. Okay. So Marianne says, thank you so much for the presentation. I have a question about the aftercare, of the engagement process. What would be your advice to keep the engagement of the community high? Thank you. I'll leave this one for you, Billy. Billy's probably got a great answer for this one.
Well, wonderful. Well, um, I'm glad we're close. I'm actually in Brussels at the moment right now. So very, very close to you, visiting some, our HQ here in Brussels. And so I would say the aftercare is one of the most important, and the follow-up to your engagement. Because a lot of times when organizations, right, put in the effort to engage, it's very much they go into a community, they ask some questions, but then they and then they leave, right? And then so they completely remove themselves from the area and the organization. And so one thing that you would have to do is establish a process for meeting for and after. And what we've seen too, especially within the online space, is having some FAQs, but and having some like afterwards, like some surveys or quick afterwards surveys to maybe help close the loop and maybe discover maybe some of the things that were done right during the process, and some of the things that maybe you can learn from. But then I think most important too is closing the loop. So whether that's clearly outlining, what you found, some of those results, some of the data, clearly showing it, and then giving relative dates that actually that you can come back and follow up into the community. Because once you do an engagement process, and I've seen this done, just my experience here in the US, once you've done your engagement processes, you have to follow up in order to keep that trust and build that trust. And so that'll make things a lot easier as well if you're already partnered with certain organizations that are already in the community. So I hope that helps. Okay.
Do we have any other questions?
And so, okay, there's one that came in. So, you talked a little bit about email marketing. How do you engage, community if you don't have, if you don't have a database? So I would say too, it depends on your organization and the makeup, right? And so a lot of times too, within the US especially, typically water utilities is run within the city, so or within the local government. So if finding where your audience is, going back to using the social media methods of the world, but then also as well as if you already have a place to where you're sending, let's say like a water bill, or you already have you're sending newsletters, right? In the newsletter functionality, or like the printed newsletters to homes might be a little bit more expensive option, but you're able to set up some QR codes, bring some traffic to your site for them to sign up and clearly explaining why. Or if you have, for instance, the utility bills, running a water project, running a sustainability project, in order to get some of that traffic, to come in. But it's going to be
a great question, actually, because I feel like that's pretty dreaded for people. Is like, I really want to get into email marketing. How do I even start? But to kind of go off of what Billy said is like, if you're doing more traditional route of promotion, so if that's like flyers, kind of what he was saying, or any street team or any in person, what I would start doing is in those events and in those like networking places is start collecting those emails. So start building that list and almost having like an opt-in as well. So an opt-in process. So are you giving them some sort of, knowledge, or where they can actually opt in and put in their email as well, if that's more online. So giving them that open gate so that you can receive those emails to come in. But yeah, that's a really great question. And honestly, something that I feel most marketing teams are still trying to figure out in terms of always trying to get more information in emails. But yeah, that's a great question.
All right. We'll just wait one more minute, but just want to, share thank you so much for everybody who's joined. We'll follow up with those with, the additional information. Natalie, who's hiding behind the Citizen Lab shield here, in the background, she'll send the recording so you can have that, as well. And then along with Andrea and myself's, information.
So while we're doing that and just saying our byes, I'm gonna quickly put
There's another question that just came in. So
Oh.
do either of you have experience with mobile SMS marketing promotion via platforms like WhatsApp? I have experience within Citizen Lab, we actually have an SMS messaging tool within there. But if you have other platforms with WhatsApp, it's a very important, obviously, you have to have, the numbers in database, right? And I would say the SMS component of it is very good for either reminding people about public meetings within their specific areas, or maybe those one-off low barrier entry surveys. So if you're wanting to do, I think SMS is a perfect way of getting quick feedback very fast, and using some of those lower barrier to entry, tactics, whether that's asking some of the demographic questions baked into a survey, but a great way of again to, we have our phones with us at all times, or majority of us do. And then, but having that quick access to, being able to answer those questions. Great.
Carlton, thank you for that. We can send you that. For all of you guys, I'm just going to add my shameless plug. Add me on LinkedIn, say hello. The more friends, the merrier. If you have any questions, please reach out. And like Billy said, our Natalie will be sending the recording of this. So if you guys want to replay and see our wonderful faces and information again, you guys can do that.
Great.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
Appreciate you. All right. Thank you, everyone. Included my information as well, so Andrea doesn't get all the love here. But we'll share all that information. And yeah, again, if you have any other questions, me and Andrea are more than happy to lend a hand. And I hope you thought this was helpful as well.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.